Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Naruto formed a new team, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Jiraiya, the legendary Toad Hermit, is highly regarded for his amazing abilities, including his marvelous sealing and summoning techniques, as well as the Rasengan. His knowledge and skills are well respected. But, somehow, all that knowledge becomes irrelevant when one is hunched over at a bar, visibly distressed, with 3 small children nagging at said person. Well, at least one was still nagging. Hey old man, what are you doing? We've been here for hours, so let's get going. Naruto stood on a stool next to the Sennin and bombarded him with questions, while Haku and Gaara sat quietly waiting for further instruction. Konoha wasn't what they had expected, or rather, Jiraiya was a poor tour guide. Either way, they hadn't done very much since their arrival. They had been in the Leaf Village for about 2 hours, and Jiraiya had made a beeline for the nearest tavern, wanting to strip away the tension Naruto had so generously bestowed him with during their return journey. It wasn't the wisest move. The bartender wasn't sure what to make of the sage sitting there with 3 small children at his side. He didn't say anything and went about serving Jiraiya. After all, a well-paying customer doesn't need their privacy invaded. Although, the yappy kid was annoying. Old man, when am I gonna get to go see Hinata-chan? Naruto bent down to get a better look at the buzzed ninja. Jiraiya had his head bowed down on the counter, and he mumbled a feeble response to the blonde boy. Who was this? Hinata, he kept rambling on about anyway. PSH, he could care less. Why the hell did he have 3 kids with him anyway? He had been through this kind of rigmarole twice in the past. But a third time's a charm. 2 Jinchuriki and a farm boy, it was the oddest congregation he had ever seen. I'm gonna need another drink. The Sennin muttered, his head lolled weakly on his folded arms. Neither Haku nor Gaara could make heads or tails of the sage's odd behavior. Haku, being the most perceptive, had come to the conclusion that whatever was going on was not the most wholesome activity they could be participating in. What is this stuff anyway? Naruto yanked the bottle of sake out of the man's hand easily. He inspected it with an inquisitive sniff, and Haku and Gaara watched curiously while he took a sip. Jiraiya wasn't moving, and Gaara could hear the faint snores coming from under the man's mop of white hair. Why is he sleeping now? He was wide awake a second ago. In disgust, Naruto spat out the strong rice wine. Naya. That stuff is gross. He handed the bottle to Haku, who passed it along warily to Gaara. Why did Haku just hand me this? Gaara inspected the alcoholic beverage. Jiraiya had been guzzling down its contents for quite a while. There must have been a reason. Before Haku could advise him against it, Gaara tipped back the sake and put the bottle down. Whoa, this stuff is. Gaara's face scrunched in reaction to it. It was nasty. Hey old man, snap out of it. Naruto gave him a few reviving s on the cheek. I'm fed up with waiting for you. Ugh. Jiraiya heaved himself up and looked to the kids. A blonde, a redhead and then dark hair. The colors made him dizzy, but he stood up anyway and paid the tab for his numerous drinks. Thank you very much, sir. The bartender wasn't sure if the Sennin had meant to leave as much money as he did, but again, he said nothing about it. Be careful, he doesn't look so well. Haku led the drunken sage along by the hand carefully. Maybe he had too much to drink. The 4 of them walked down the street with Jiraiya muttering insensible babble and occasionally pausing to shake his head as if he was some sort of irritated dog. Now that you mention it, Naruto acknowledged the ninja's state. He does look a bit sick. We'll take him back to my place for a rest. They agreed it was the best course of action if the Sennin had to be such a burden. Gaara tugged his gourd along. It swung gently on his back while he walked beside Naruto. The village hidden in the leaves was much different than his home. Trees and plants were everywhere and there was not a grain of sand to be found. The red-haired boy had even been surprised he was shivering slightly, for he was not yet adjusted to the cooler temperature of Konoha. This is the place where I can learn to control my power and... The thought of his painful departure from Suna glanced across his mind again. Maybe I can stop the voice from talking to me. He was thankful he didn't have to listen to the psychopathic demands of the demon imprisoned inside of him for the moment. But any time the voice returned would be too soon. I'll just ignore it then. Suddenly, Jiraiya sniffed and then appeared to have snapped out of his funk. Oh, my head. Wait a minute, the sage groaned, where are you taking me? To Naruto's place, Haku answered. Jiraiya was less than pleased with that response. Like hell you are. That place is probably a nest of wild animals and ramen. Naruto whipped around and snarled at the halted ninja. What? Fine. You can't come then. They just stood there, wondering what to do. Jiraiya quickly realized that disorganized 6-year-olds and a wicked buzz didn't mix. We're going to the Hokage, the man announced. There's a lot of explaining I have to do on all 3 of your accounts, especially you little brat. He pointed to Naruto. It was becoming increasingly obvious that Jiraiya and Naruto lived to bother each other. I only did what I had to do. Naruto retorted, but knew that he shouldn't have so recklessly fled from his village. Sure. The 3 children followed Jiraiya in the opposite direction, and ahead of them a large tower came into sight. Haku looked up, observing the structure as they approached. Back in the water country he hadn't ever seen a building so tall before. What is that? He murmured. Naruto quickly answered, that's the Hokage's tower. Cool huh? It wasn't anything new to Gaara. He recalled a similar tower that had been built for the Kazekage as well in Suna. My father is the Kazekage, and he only wants me the boy considered. Would the Hokage want the same? Sarutobi Hiruzen blew a puff of smoke slowly from between his teeth. Naruto, the last thing I need is to send a search party after a young boy such as yourself. The Hokage sighed, your safety is of great priority, however you should know better than to abuse my protection. The Kyuubi container stood guiltily in front of the Hokage, while Haku, Gaara and Jiraiya stood behind him and watched. A rebellious expression lingered on the blonde boy's face even while the Hokage lectured him on the path to becoming a shinobi and a respected citizen of Konoha. It isn't proper for anyone, child or adult, to run about and do whatever he or she pleases, the Hokage added while he inhaled on his pipe. I will have your word that from now on you will remain inside of Konoha until you are told otherwise by myself or an instructor, is that clear? Yes, Hokage-sama. Naruto's voice was low and annoyed. It was just a bit of training, no big deal right? Apparently the Lord of the Leaf Village thought otherwise. Naruto was tired of listening to adults condescend, he would rather visit a friend waiting for him by his favorite spot. And what did these wise elders really expect? Naruto wondered to himself as the Hokage continued on about showing respect and obeying rules. He had no family, no parents, no one and nothing to teach him anything. They want me to follow rules, but hardly anyone talks to me. I find out what I do wrong after I do it and then they yell at me. He didn't have anyone to tell him anything. Not even that socks were supposed to match when you wore them, or that girls get upset when the toilet seat is left up. The common sense things that others were taught by parents and families he had to discover on his own. Always the hard way. After ending his lecture, the Hokage turned to Haku, and who is this? Jiraiya nudged him forward. Well, go on kid. The dark-haired boy stepped up and bowed respectfully. I am Haku of the water country, Hokage-sama. It was a pleasant change for Hiruzen to talk to a polite child for once. Between Naruto and his young grandchildren he was constantly being challenging by youngsters. Do you have a family name, Haku? The farm boy paused. The others had often introduced themselves with family names, with the exception of Gaara, and he felt awkward when he couldn't give an answer. I don't know my surname, Hokage-sama. Haku replied honestly. The old man nodded, a wreath of smoke ringed around his head. I see. Hoping he wouldn't have to, Jiraiya sighed when he spoke up for the boy. As far as I can tell, this kid came from a farm on the lands that surrounded the Mist Village. The Sennin leaned in and lowered his voice. It's really suspicious. This kid may have lived a commoner's life, but his chakra control is so advanced he must have shinobi lineage. The third understood. You suggest he is of ninja descent. There's no other explanation, Jiraiya shrugged. It's freaky. He could be a survivor of one of the clans that had been ravaged in mist during the war. Haku had listened carefully and faintly understood. He dimly recalled his father ranting about he and his mother belonging to the clan people, before he had been I am descended from a clan, Haku said suddenly, startling his companions as well as the skilled ninja. My father told me I was, so he tried to. He what? The Sennin was impatient with his hesitation. Haku hadn't expected he would have to confess to his family tragedy upon arriving in Konoha. Although he feared that admitting the truth would affect his chances for ninja training, he decided it was worth the risk. He looked at Gaara and Naruto and then to the Hokage. He K my mother, and then he tried to K me. There was a silence. Naruto and Gaara only stared at the docile friend. Never had they expected that gentle Haku could have been through such a horror. Jiraiya and Hiruzen were less surprised. So he was fearful then. The Hokage then looked directly at Haku. How did you survive? I ran away. Jiraiya saw through the lie immediately and shook his head. The Hokage had already assumed the answer. Very well, your story is proof enough, since you have no ties to the hidden mist village. You are welcome here, the Sandaime declared. I only have one question for you, Haku. Yes sir. Can you tell me of any special abilities that you have? The Hokage asked. Naruto couldn't keep his mouth shut. Yeah. He can control water. It's so cool. Jiraiya lightly whacked the blonde in the back of the head. Shut up, squirt. He didn't ask you. Naruto glared viciously at the Sennin. What Naruto said is true, Haku said quietly. Water and ice. I can use however I want. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. I didn't know about that one. Hey, it looks like we have another unique Kekkei Genkai in Konoha, Hokage-sama. Naruto pouted even more. He had at last realized Jiraiya had been sarcastic while referring to him as the Hokage. Gaara noticed Naruto's reaction and sighed inwardly. Just more paperwork really. There's no use in prizing shinobi with B limits over those that have none. Sarutobi sighed, knowing that recording Haku's progress would span the course of the boy's lifetime. Despite the random child winding up in Leaf and needing to be raised, the information on one of the survivors of the Water Country's old clans would be invaluable. Seeing he was through, Haku went to stand by Naruto who had gone quiet. Gaara took this as his cue and stood before the Sandaime. I already know who you are. Hiruzen's voice was guarded. You are aware that your home is in Sunagakure, yes. Jiraiya mentally himself. Crap. He had forgotten the Hokage wouldn't be very pleased with having the one-tailed Jinchuriki as a resident. For political reasons, the Leaf Village was technically not supposed to have more than one Jinchuriki. The Kyuubi was promised to Konoha when the first Hokage had been arranging peace treaties. To take in any more could anger any village that found out. Would the Hokage even consider sending him back to Suna? Back to his death. It was bad enough Gaara hadn't even responded to the hostile Hokage's question, but Jiraiya assumed his input may be the last straw for the third. Screw it. Hokage-sama, the sage chose his words carefully, having a hard time of doing so with his still buzzing head. You know as well as I that if the Kazekage was truly concerned with the boy's welfare he would have doubled his efforts to locate him. I mean, sheesh, the kid's in Konoha now. Obviously he wasn't trying very hard to find him. The Kazekage had ended his search 2 days ago, according to a report I received. Sarutobi took a deep drag on his pipe. Jiraiya hadn't been informed. What could he say? He was a hermit after all, and distanced himself from anything that didn't revolve around his precious research. Gaara stood quietly while Haku and Naruto watched the discussion. So I guess he doesn't want the kid back then after all? The Sennin inquired. No, he assumes this child is saving some work for him. The Hokage answered simply, it would be unwise to return Sabaku no Gaara to the Kazekage, who believes him to be long deceased. You mean, he should stay here? The Hokage sighed, we'll have to keep this quiet. Jiraiya grinned to himself, well that will be a kick in the pants for him when the Chunin exams roll around, huh? How will you explain that if the Sand Kid is participating? Hiruzen said nothing and took a very long drag. Where does Jiraiya-sama keep going to do his research? Haku asked while Naruto led them through Konoha, drawing a few stairs. The Sennin had once again left them up to their own devices. Who cares? That old man isn't good for much anyway. Naruto snorted scornfully. He leaves us alone a lot. Gaara said quietly. He's just a jerk, that's why. The blonde asserted. Gaara, who walked behind Haku, suddenly paused when he felt a pair of eyes on him. He looked back, wondering who may have been inspecting him. Haku noticed his actions and also stopped, while Naruto obliviously kept on walking. What is it, Gaara? the dark-haired boy asked. He said nothing in response, and noticed a set of curious white eyes examining him from across the street. It was a boy, young like themselves, with long, dark hair tied back. He stood next to a tall man who Gaara supposed was his father. He felt a twinge of jealousy over the boy for a moment. He had never felt such attachment to anyone in his family. Gaara. The boy kept watching him, as if he could see right through him. Gaara felt almost compelled to lash out at him, but he willfully suppressed the feeling. Gaara turned back to Haku. Nothing. Let's go. Home at last. Naruto leaped inside of his apartment and tossed his backpack aside. Haku and Gaara gingerly ventured inside after him. It was a strangely decorated place. The walls were painted a pale green, and there were potted plants placed in strange places throughout the apartment. Laundry, both dirty and clean, was sprawled out covering the entire floor. Gaara didn't have much of an opinion on Naruto's living space, but Haku did. Do you live here by yourself, Naruto? Haku asked rhetorically. The clueless blonde answered, yup, just me. I guess you guys will be staying here too. This is gonna be great. Suddenly Gaara was as alarmed as Haku was. Live here. The place was in shambles. Naruto, Gaara spoke up, this place is a dump. Haku agreed and couldn't restrain a small laugh. Naruto's cheeks brightened and he retorted, well I haven't been here in a while, that's all. I'll have this place cleaned up in a jiffy. Gaara appeared skeptical about the comment. It looked as if the place hadn't been cleaned in years. Naruto scrambled around lifting armfuls of clothing and tossed them into a closet. Gaara watched with amusement as Haku rushed to help him. Haku was very orderly for a farm boy and felt the need to clean things. Either that or he felt bad for the disorganized blonde and only wanted to assist him. Gaara didn't make a move. What the heck was this? Weren't they supposed to be training to be ninja? How was this anywhere near relevant to the goal? Naruto finally stopped when the floor was visible, but Haku continued on cleaning other miscellaneous objects. He's a bit weird, isn't he? Naruto asked Gaara while they observed him engaging in chores he had often helped his mother with back in the water country. So are you. The redhead answered bluntly, then added, me too. Naruto grinned, hey, we're weirdos. Gaara became quiet again. Was it even something to be proud of? Their individuality. He'd give anything to be normal so he could live a better life and not be hated by his village. Naruto, Haku was currently in the kitchen, why don't you wash yourself up? You told us you wanted to see your friend soon. Naruto looked down at himself. Oh, what had Jiraiya called it? Lord of the Flies. He was a mess like his apartment. And it wasn't very reassuring that Haku had been reduced to doing his dishes for him. How would they function together? Yeah, I guess I am kinda gross, Naruto chuckled, I'll clean up and then we'll go see Hinata-chan. As the blonde ran into the bathroom trailing dirt and leaves behind him, Gaara set down his gourd. Haku, please stop cleaning. It bothered the red-haired boy to watch Haku pick up after their loud friend. It's alright, I like to clean, he replied while looking around for a dish towel, it reminds me of home. It was quiet except for the sound of a shower running and Naruto babbling to himself. Gaara sat quietly in a chair in the kitchen, recalling what the Hokage had said. Did your father really try to kill you? Haku was silent for a minute and then answered, he did. My uncle tried to kill me. Haku looked at him, is that why you left your home? Gaara nodded. Haku knew better than to ask how he had gotten away with his life. But judging by the similarities all three of them shared, he guessed they had both escaped by parallel means. Do you think Naruto? Probably, Gaara answered shortly, I don't know why anyone would want to hurt him though. Maybe he just left Konoha to become stronger like he said, Haku mused while drying a plate, he said he has a friend so, maybe people like him. Maybe. Gaara wasn't sure why Naruto had left such a great village like Konoha in the first place. Something must have been wrong. Gaara. Haku smiled sheepishly to him, can you help me with the dishes? Naruto has left quite a mess. The redhead groaned inwardly. He didn't like housework, but knowing their blonde companion he supposed he'd have to get used to it. Fine. Clean and excited, Naruto had practically shoved his friends out the door and ran to the ninja academy. Gaara was thankful he had decided to leave his gourd back at Naruto's apartment, because he was sure he wouldn't have been able to keep up with him bearing all the extra weight. Naruto slowed down. Haku called ahead to him. He and Gaara trailed behind the blonde who was running as if he were gunning for first place. Naruto, you said she'd be waiting for you, so what's your rush? Haku called again. He slowed down to let his companions catch up. I don't know. I just really want to see her, I guess. Gaara gave Naruto an annoyed look while he took a moment to catch his breath. The blonde only laughed merrily. Hinata would be surprised to see him. Come on guys, hurry up. It isn't far. Naruto could no longer wait and rushed ahead. With a sigh, Haku and Gaara followed, hoping they wouldn't have to do this often. They passed by a squad of training genin as they neared the academy, and a few shouted some rude remarks to the blonde boy. He was too busy to hear them. However, Haku was rather appalled by their impolite language. Gaara began to doubt how Haku believed Naruto's fellow villagers liked him. Suddenly, Naruto paused and then leapt up into the cover of a tree, gesturing for his friends to follow. Gaara leapt up as well, while Haku walked up casually, proud of his chakra control. Look, there she is, see. Naruto pointed to a swing on a nearby tree, where a dark-haired girl sat. Who is that with her, Naruto? Haku whispered. She wasn't alone. A pink-haired girl stood next to her, talking up a storm, while the quiet girl listened intently. Gaara thought his eyes were being fooled for a moment. Pink hair. He blinked a few times. Naruto, on the other hand, was taken aback. He recognized both girls, but was still keen on impressing Hinata. After a silent moment of Naruto grinning to himself, he stood up on the branch. Hey, Hinata-chan. Gaara and Haku shook their heads. What was the point of stealth if Naruto would only blow their cover by increasing his volume? The white-eyed girl immediately looked up into the tree, and her pink-haired friend turned as well. Naruto jumped down and Gaara and Haku followed after a moment. Naruto-kun. The quiet girl squeaked. Haku noticed her timid voice. How could such a loudmouth and a shy girl become friends? Naruto ran up to her. His face was one big grin. Hi Hinata-chan. I told ya I'd be back. She nearly fainted when he hugged her. Was this a dream? I know. Hinata answered softly. Her face was so red it resembled the shade of Gaara's hair. Hi, Naruto. The pink-haired girl said with a small smile. Naruto looked over the top of Hinata's head. Oh. Sakura, hi. Sakura. Gaara made note of her name, as did Haku. Time to get acquainted with the people of their new village. Sakura appeared guilty looking, and when the blonde finally backed away from Hinata, she bowed her head in apology. Naruto, I'm sorry for what I did to you. It wasn't fair. She. Sakura watched as the boy's face became mistrusting. She wasn't nice. And I still want to be friends with you, Naruto. I don't care what my parents say. Gaara and Haku watched the blonde boy carefully. For once his face appeared grim. What was going on? So, are we still friends? Sakura asked uncertainly. The blonde's frown melted away. I think we can be. You aren't mad. The pink-haired girl was relieved. No way. Friends stick together, Naruto declared, brandishing his usual foxy grin. Now, I want you two to meet my other friends I met outside Konoha. He grabbed Sakura and Hinata by the wrists and pulled them over to the two boys behind him. Haku immediately liked the girls. He could sense they were agreeable. Hello, I'm Haku. Hinata nodded quietly while Sakura answered, nice to meet you. They turned to the red-haired boy. He simply said, Gaara. Don't worry, he doesn't talk much anyway, Naruto assured them, and guys, this is Sakura-chan and Hinata-chan. Hinata wore a small smile and a huge blush, while Sakura was more open with them. So, where did you all meet? The pink-haired girl asked curiously. We all met each other in Kuro town, Haku explained. It was more of an accident really, but we all want to become ninja. Gaara kept looking at Sakura's hair. Hinata and I are going to be ninja too. Sakura announced, we'll be the best kunoichi in the entire village. Hinata was silently praying that was true, since her father expected much from her. Naruto looked curiously at Sakura. So, Sakura-chan, where's Ino? Oh, she lowered her voice. I decided that we can't be friends anymore if she was going to be so mean to you. You didn't have to. I know, but I wanted to. Sakura smiled, and Hinata-chan is the best. We spent all day yesterday pressing flowers. Hinata smiled. Yes, it was nice. A voice came from behind them, Hinata-sama. The children looked back at a tall, dark-haired man and a young boy. They both had the same eyes as Hinata. Gaara recognized them from before and he frowned, sensing something strange about them. Hinata-sama, the boy spoke again, we should be going now. She nodded quickly. Oh, yes, Neji-nisan. Hinata turned to her friends. I should go home now. Sakura and Naruto appeared the most disappointed that she couldn't stay. Can we see you tomorrow, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked hopefully. The girl took another look at Neji and his father, and the solemn expression on Hisashi's face made it clear she would be confined to the Hyuga compound for a while. I don't think so. I'm sorry, she said softly, and she then turned to Haku and Gaara. It was nice meeting you. Haku smiled. It was nice to meet you too, Hinata-chan. Gaara nodded in agreement, and watched as she went up to her uncle. Naruto and Sakura appeared perplexed as to what was going on and why the tall man looked so upset. Neji looked at Gaara and Haku curiously, immediately recognizing, as his father had, that they were not natives of Hidden Leaf. Before Neji could talk to the red-haired boy he had seen before, Hisashi ushered him on. Let's go you two. Hinata waved goodbye to her friends as she fell in step with her uncle. Naruto looked confused. Neji-nisan. She never told me she had a brother. Sakura sighed. She only has a little sister, Naruto. That was Neji, her cousin. She sort of considers him like a brother she can look up to. Still, he didn't get it but nodded anyway. I saw them before, Gaara said, and Haku looked at him. You mean when we left Hokage-sama's tower? He asked. Gaara nodded. Naruto folded his arms behind his head. I wonder what has them all so freaked out. A sad look came over Sakura's face. Didn't she tell you? The blonde looked at her oddly. Tell me what? Neji, Hinata's cousin, Sakura continued, drawing Gaara and Haku's attention. She told me something about a seal that he'll be getting tomorrow. She said it isn't good, and that they haven't told him about it yet. Haku didn't like the sound of it. What kind of seal, Sakura-chan? I don't know, she didn't say anything else after that. Well, that's dumb, Naruto sniffed, still upset that Hinata had to go home so soon. Why wouldn't they just tell him? Is it that bad? Gaara only frowned. He's a branch family member, Sakura added. They all get it, I guess, so the main family stays stronger. Hinata-chan must be from the main house of her clan then. Haku realized. She is. The pink-haired girl sat down on the swing, but she's really worried. She told me that she doesn't want Neji to have this seal put on him. So don't let him get it. Naruto resolved. What's the big deal? There was a silence. Naruto's lack of understanding could be a pain at times. The point is it's bad and we can't do anything about it. Gaara said shortly. Family matters didn't have to be publicized in his opinion. Who says? Naruto smirked. We'll go find Hinata-chan tomorrow and see if we can help her. Her cousin. You're crazy, Naruto. Sakura snapped. Have you seen her house? It's huge. We'll never be able to get in. We can get in, Haku said, finding he liked Naruto's idea. Jiraiya-sama has taught us how to climb trees using our chakra. Yeah, Naruto recalled. We'll just climb up the side of her house if they won't let us in. Again, the pink-haired girl was flustered. What will you do about guards? You can't just sneak into someone's house whenever you feel like it. We'll be careful, the blonde insisted. You'll get caught. And then what? I can handle the guards if we have to. Gaara volunteered. You can't fight grown-ups. Yes he can. Naruto declared confidently and Gaara's back. Gaara's sand power is awesome. Sakura couldn't believe how arrogant they were being. She turned to Haku and Gaara. Naruto's being silly. We can see Hinata-chan another day. Are you really going to listen to him? Haku nodded. Unbelievable. Boys are so stupid. Sakura grumbled. Was she the only one that realized that the Hyuga compound was nearly impenetrable and off-limits to unwelcome outsiders? Gaara took a long look at Sakura. She was smart, he liked that about her. But still, Haku had sided with Naruto's idea. Haku was also smart. Was this really a bright idea? I'm going to. Gaara confirmed, not taking his gaze away from Sakura. She couldn't have made it any clearer how they were being foolish. Yet, she still felt they should do something to help Hinata and her cousin. Well, if you really have to go, fine, but. Sakura sighed, fearing she would regret it. I'm coming with you. The morning sun filtered down through an open window, illuminating Haku's angelic face. He rolled over under his blanket and after a moment rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Haku sat up with a well-rested stretch, welcoming the sunlight. Yesterday, he had recalled, was the beginning of his life in Konoha. It wasn't all ninja training that he expected it would be, but rather learning to live peacefully again. It was something he could get used to. He also found it a pleasant change to sleep under a roof for once after traveling with Hiroshi for so long, sleeping out in the cold. Haku sighed at the thought. How was Hiroshi doing? I promised to make him proud. Haku smiled to himself. After seeing he had managed to impress Jiraiya as well as his friends, he felt he was well on his way in doing so. The dark-haired boy peered over from his spot on the couch. Not too far away was Naruto, snoring loudly in his bed while wearing a penguin nightcap. It was a comforting sight. On the opposite side of the room was Gaara. He was sitting propped up against the wall with dark circles under his eyes. Haku was concerned. Did you get any sleep, Gaara? Haku asked as he stood and folded his blanket. The red-haired boy shook his head. The voice keeps me up all night. Haku looked at him with worry. What voice? Every night they had stopped on their journey to Hidden Leaf with Jiraiya, Gaara had the same excuse over and over again as he stayed up. Haku feared if he didn't eventually get some sleep he might go crazy. But Naruto was a living testament that proved one didn't have to be deprived of sleep to be crazy. Gaara noticed Haku's troubled face. It touched him that he and Naruto cared so much. It's all right. I'm okay so long as I get a chance to rest. You still have to get some sleep eventually. Haku replied softly. Gaara turned his gaze back to the open window. He had watched his friends sleep all night with a mix of jealousy and fascination. It was strange to have to watch Naruto and Haku sleep soundly while he just sat there, afraid to let the Shukaku possess him again. A sparrow fluttered to the windowsill and perched there, observing the apartment's occupants curiously. Gaara couldn't help but smile. He liked Konoha. That was one thing he was sure of. Haku quietly passed by the slumbering blonde and entered the kitchen. He had taken it upon himself to feed everyone that morning, and he investigated all of the cabinets and the refrigerator to see if anything edible was present. His luck wasn't very good. One sniff of a milk carton told Haku that he would have to be cautious as to not accidentally poison his friends. Gah! What smells so good? Naruto's nose distinguished the wonderful aroma of food even during his sleep. He sprang out of his bed and paused when he saw Gaara seated on the floor, looking exhausted. Gaara, are you okay? The blonde boy asked. Come on, I smell chow. Gaara slowly got to his feet and followed Naruto to the source of the pleasant smell. Spread out on the table were 3 bowls containing rice and eggs with a side of miso soup. Naruto grinned. Haku, where did you learn how to cook? He dove into his breakfast with an excited, itadakimasu, while Gaara just observed Haku's handiwork. Apparently his talents extended beyond perfect chakra control and cleaning. The black-haired boy smiled at him, pleased that he had done well. My mother taught me many things. He answered. I would make things for her sometimes. Gaara, aren't you hungry? Gaara nodded and took a seat beside Naruto. His stomach growled. He felt as if he hadn't eaten in ages. Gaara eyed the rice in front of him warily. Itadakimasu, he said softly before quickly bringing his chopsticks to his lips. Haku was in an extremely pleasant mood that morning, and just couldn't extinguish the sweet smile on his face. In only a matter of minutes, Naruto had devoured every last morsel in front of him. Haku sighed in slight annoyance. His energetic friend's eating habit was something he would never get used to. Oh, Naruto, I suppose later we'll have to go get some more food, Haku announced. There isn't much here. Naruto blinked at Haku and then chuckled sheepishly. Hey, you're right. I can't cook well and I mostly just eat ramen all the time. We've realized. Gaara smirked. Naruto huffed. Over time, Gaara's at first quiet, timid personality had become cooler as he got to know Haku and Naruto better. Yet, Naruto was able to see he was still being friendly. Right, Haku nodded. We can go later after we go see Hinata-chan. The blonde's responses were becoming easier to predict. Haku smiled and nodded again before taking a bite of egg. Hey, check this out. Naruto flashed a shuriken in front of Haku and Gaara's faces. I found it lying on the side of the road yesterday. I'm gonna start practicing how to throw it. That's great, Naruto. Haku wondered how an expensive weapon such as a shuriken had been cast aside, but it was Naruto's good fortune. Haku had once heard the saying, finders keepers, and believed it applied to any abandoned item. Suddenly Gaara spoke up. What is he doing? Naruto turned to him. Who's doing what? The three of them looked up, and saw none other than the legendary Toad Sage balanced on a high tree branch next to a building while scribbling notes. Research maybe, Haku suggested. Naruto of course frowned. What a weirdo. He leapt up into the tree to go insult the old ninja, and Haku and Gaara followed out of curiosity. Before Naruto could bark at the Sennin, his eyes strayed in the same direction the toad hermits had. Jiraiya was peeping into a window, observing a. What the heck are you doing, old man? The blonde hollered. Startled, Jiraiya seized Naruto and clapped his hand over the child's big mouth. Shut up, ya little runt. He hissed, you want me to get caught? There was a muffled, yes, and Haku and Gaara had also noticed the subject of Jiraiya's attention. Gaara scowled and Haku wore a look of utter repugnance. Jiraiya-sama. Haku gasped, it's not right to spy on ladies when they don't have their clothes on. Ah, what do you know? The Sennin growled, we better get down before she catches us. They leapt down from the cover of the tree and Naruto was released from Jiraiya's hold before he could gnaw his hand off. Old man, you should be locked up for that. Naruto barked in disgust, pointing an accusing finger at the sage. Haku was also mortified and Gaara was gripped in a state of silent abhorrence. Jiraiya snorted, it's important research. Squirts like you are too young to understand. Now why don't you run along and go play with your little friends? Glad to be rid of the offended nuisances, Jiraiya resumed his post to continue his notes. Haku stood blushing. He felt his respect for the legendary ninja wilting. Naruto was still appalled and felt that no amount of insults could affect the perverted Sennin after what they had witnessed. He turned to Gaara and mumbled something quickly into his ear. He only shrugged. With a pop, the cork sprang out of the top of Gaara's gourd, and with his arms folded, the redhead let sand leak out surrounding Jiraiya's hiding place. Haku and Naruto watched, Naruto especially pleased, as Gaara effortlessly flung the sage back out of the tree with his levitating sand. The hell? Jiraiya was face down on the ground and covered in sand before he could blink. You little s. Jiraiya growled at Gaara, that's the second damn time. Gaara wore a small smirk, wondering if he should have done worse to the Sennin. Naruto was rolling on the ground laughing, holding his sides. Ha ha. Ero Sennin. You had that coming. Naruto, we should hurry and go find Sakura-chan now. Haku reminded his friend. In a second, Haku, Naruto was grinning, I asked Gaara to do a bit more than that. Gaara stood with sand whirling in weight around his feet. But if we don't hurry to the Hyuga compound, then that boy will get the seal put on him, Naruto muffled Haku before he could continue. Shush. We don't want Ero Sennin finding out. The blonde hissed. Haku nodded in confirmation. The words, Hyuga compound, and, seal, attracted the Sennin's once undivided attention. Now how would these three squirts know about the Hyuga clan and their branch family's caged bird seal? They just got here. He frowned at Haku, wanting an explanation. What was that, farm boy? Jiraiya inquired. Naruto waved him off of the subject, it's nothing, old man. I thought you wanted us to go play with our little friends. Gaara's sand returned to his gourd. He saw there was no point in continuing to tee the Sennin. Why don't you just go ahead with your nasty research? Naruto had successfully managed to divert the Sennin's interest. Jiraiya looked smug, that's not a bad idea. In a flash, he had gone back to his hiding place, taking the blonde's advice. Haku sighed, maybe later we should tell Hokage-sama what Jiraiya-sama has been doing. Naruto looked down at the shuriken he had discovered, yeah, maybe Hokage-sama will let me use him for target practice. Gaara smirked, I don't think you need permission for that sort of thing, Naruto. As Jiraiya was about to persist in his research, he hadn't expected that his inspiration would be fully clothed and waiting for him. But then again, what had he expected with all the raucous they had made? There was an angry shout from inside the apartment. The Kunoichi was not pleased. Shadow snakes. Multiple, Black snakes were launched at the Sennin and wrapped themselves tightly around his face. Wah! Jiraiya had no hope of escape after that point. I swear, I'm gonna make those kids pay when I get out of this. Sakura was waiting for them in front of the ninja academy. Once again, as if due to a magnetic force, Gaara couldn't peel his eyes away from her pink hair which had been done up in a ribbon. Naruto-kun, we better hurry. Once they had arrived, Sakura immediately set out in a run. I don't know how much time we have, so we have to be quick. He grinned. We're fine. Who's up this early anyway? I usually sleep until noon. Not everyone is like you, Naruto. Gaara pointed out, a bit touchy on the subject of sleep. Naruto only laughed sheepishly, feeling optimistic since Gaara had given Jiraiya a piece of his mind earlier. It was going to be a good day. He could tell. Now what? Gaara folded his arms as they stood outside of the Hyuga compound. Sakura had been correct. The place was huge. Haku had mentioned on the way there that they wouldn't be admitted in the front gates if someone wasn't expecting them. So they reverted to Naruto's crooked plan of inconspicuously scaling the wall surrounding the estate. The idea was so ludicrously simple there was a chance it could work. Okay, so once we're on the other side we sneak around until we find Hinata-chan, got it? Naruto explained the remainder of his plan to his companions while they remained out of sight. Sakura hung her head in doubt. I don't think this is going to work. It will if we're careful. We've got to try. Haku rested his hand on the loud blonde's shoulder. Naruto, try to be a bit quieter. They'll find us more quickly if you keep shouting like that. I'll go first. Gaara volunteered himself again. Before Naruto could protest, the red-haired boy had jumped the wall and disappeared to the other side. I'm the leader, so I should have went first. He pouted. The pink-haired girl gave him a sarcastic look. Who made you the leader anyway? I just am, okay. I think it's best that Gaara went ahead. He is the quietest after all. Haku said softly. The three of them ducked behind a nearby bush as a few people walked past, probably going into the compound. After a few tense moments, a hiss from the other side was heard. It's clear. Naruto shot like a bullet over the wall, nearly giving Sakura a heart attack. His energy was frightening at times. Climb on my back, Sakura-chan, I'll help you get you over. Haku offered. She gave him a grateful look. Are you sure I'm not too heavy? Haku-kun. He smiled. Really, it's fine. Sakura did as she was instructed and watched in amazement as Haku scrambled up the wall, regulating his chakra to withstand the weight of two people. She suppressed a frightened shriek as they fell 10 feet back down to the ground. Haku landed with cat-like grace and Sakura quickly hopped off of him. Naruto nodded to them once they had arrived. Good, you made it. He said in a low voice, now we just need to get around those two guys over there. Naruto indicated two guards stationed in front. It didn't appear as if they would be leaving anytime soon. Without a word, Gaara uncorked the gourd and let his sand slip unnoticed along the ground. Again, Sakura was surprised. She hadn't witnessed his power before. The guards did not see the sand until it had surrounded them in a thick cloud. Naruto and Haku grinned as the guards scrambled around in confusion, unable to avoid the irritating dust. Go, Gaara hissed, I'll distract them. Thank you, Gaara, Haku said quietly as he took Sakura by the hand and dashed after Naruto across the lawn. Gaara smirked to himself as he watched the fumbling guards in amusement. Maybe it wasn't as difficult to get in as Sakura had made it seem. After bolting across the Hyuga estate's grounds, they found cover in a garden. Sakura was bothered that they had left Gaara behind in order to continue on. Will he be alright by himself? She wasn't needlessly worried. Nah, Gaara can handle himself fine, Naruto assured her. He had no problem dealing with Eros Sennin before. Haku watched carefully from the bush they had concealed themselves behind. The area appeared to be empty. I don't think anyone is over here, he determined. We can see through this garden and keep looking. They nodded in agreement before moving on. The three of them darted through the flowers and foliage, following Naruto's lead. Sakura was still troubled over leaving Gaara behind as they covered more distance, completely lost and unaware of their surroundings. Just as they thought they could move on without being seen. Naruto, wait, Haku hissed. He was too late, and the blonde boy rushed headlong into a bewildered member of the Hyuga family. That's it. Now we're in trouble. Naruto was prepared to be seized by the collar and hurled out of the front gate. Instead, he only heard a soft voice recognize him, Naruto-kun. He looked over to the girl he had knocked over. Hey Hinata-chan. Naruto, be quiet, Sakura warned as she and Haku came up from behind him. Naruto helped the Hyuga heiress to her feet and she only stared at her friends, stunned. What are you all doing here? The QB container grinned at her. We came to see you and help your cousin. She was shocked. What? Why? Because you've been really worried about him, Sakura explained, and we want to help. Color flooded the shy girl's cheeks. Thank you, it's very kind of you all. Haku turned to Hinata. Hinata-chan, do you know where we can find your cousin? She nodded shyly. Yes, he should be on the other side of the grounds. Naruto was beaming. Then let's go. We can bust him out of here before anything happens to him. As they followed the blonde boy, Sakura had her doubts. I don't know, we left Gaara-kun alone and now we have to take some boy we don't know from his own house, Naruto. I think this is getting a bit too complicated. He didn't seem at all swayed. Well, it's important to Hinata-chan, so we can't give up. They snuck around the back of the house, and Hinata led them on at the front, keeping watch for anyone who came too close. This way. The nervous girl showed them into the back of another garden, not sure what Naruto intended to do once they found Neji. Many people stood outside of the house there and the children immediately ducked behind a cluster of azaleas. While Sakura kept constantly reminding Naruto to be quiet, Haku had another question for the Hyuga girl. Hinata-chan, why is this seal so bad exactly? Her eyes dropped to the ground. The mere idea of it bothered her tremendously. My father says that since Neji-Nisan is part of the branch family, he must have it put on him. We call it the caged bird seal. Her voice faltered as Sakura and Naruto began to listen as well. When a branch family member shows disrespect or does something inappropriate, main family members can use it to hurt them. Why would you want to hurt someone in your own family like that? Sakura wondered. I don't want anyone to be hurt. Hinata declared rather loudly. The seal, it could KK Neji-Nisan if someone uses it. Naruto's mind was quickly made up. Then we can't let that happen to him. But, what can we do, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. He wore an expression of pure determination. We find him and get him out of here, even if we have to fight. Sakura shook her head. This is too much. We're going to get into so much trouble. Well, maybe we can't fight, but we have snuck around without being seen for a while, Haku said quietly. Maybe we can escape without being noticed. I don't know, there's probably a way. Sakura was also trying to come up with a plan. Hinata surveyed the courtyard, looking for any sign of her cousin. Don't see him and if we don't find him soon. I think we should split up. We've all seen what he looks like, right? We can find your cousin a lot faster if we all look. Naruto decided. In a few minutes, we'll all meet back here, alright. It was the only idea they had. Okay. Haku nodded with a smile. I'll cause a distraction while you all look. Naruto continued to slink along the side of the house through a line of hedges, while Hinata was able to search out in the open, ducking through a crowd of her relatives. Before Sakura went her own way, she turned to Haku. Haku-kun, please see if you can find Gaara-kun. I hope he's alright. Of course, Sakura-chan. He agreed. She departed with a grateful look and Haku quickly darted around the back of the congregation, silently praying that Naruto wouldn't blow their cover. Hinata desperately tried to sort through the small crowd of people in the courtyard. All at once she was glad that her friends had come to help her and yet terrified of what would become of her older cousin. And Naruto-kun is so brave, he wants to help me even if it means he'd get into trouble. The prospect of the blonde boy selflessly aiding her only added to her adoration for him. No, I can't let Neji-Nisan get the seal. Not after so many people came to help. As she darted around searching, fierce determination flooded her veins. I'll be like Naruto-kun. I won't give up. Suddenly many of the adults rushed over to the garden and watched in astonishment as the contents of a bucket of water inexplicably began to levitate in the air. While the water swirled about, Hinata noted that it was Haku's aforementioned distraction. She seized the moment to continue her search. Without warning, something clicked in her head. Hinata was startled when she was suddenly fully aware of her surroundings. Her once straining eyes saw perfectly in all directions and even inside of her own house, through a solid wall. It was a shock that also felt natural somehow. Is this what father sees when he uses the Byakugan? She now understood her father's description of the Hyuga family's B-limit. She didn't waste time doting over her accomplishment, although it was the first time she had ever used her Kekkei Genkai. Hinata stopped in front of the branch house and giggled to herself when she noticed Sakura and Naruto slinking along unseen through the hedges. Without the Byakugan, she wouldn't have noticed them at all, which reminded her of a daunting realization. If someone else uses their Byakugan and sees them, they didn't have much time. Haku's power had also aroused suspicion that something other than the absence of gravity was responsible for the hovering sphere of water. Hinata swung her head from side to side to get a full view of the area, and gasped suddenly when she spotted the one person she had been looking for. Oh, Neji-san. The boy looked at her in confusion. Hinata-sama. He stepped outside of the branch house and walked over to her, seeing the apprehensive look on her face. Neji also noticed how many people were gathered around the garden for some strange reason. Hinata-sama, is something wrong? The boy fell quiet as he observed the veins surrounding her eyes. Hinata-sama, when did you begin using the Byakugan? He had only just managed it himself a few weeks before, and was surprised to see shy Hinata brandishing the prestigious blood limit. Just now actually, she said quickly while deactivating it with a small twinge behind her eyes, but Neji-san, we must hurry. Please come with me. Hinata hastily grabbed his hand and pulled him along towards Naruto and Sakura's hiding place. What's going on? Neji asked. Instead of a response, Neji was surprised to hear a voice from the hedges. Hey, did you get him, Hinata-chan? Yes. A blonde boy who Neji had briefly seen the day before dove out of his cover and grabbed the both of them. He pulled them back behind the bushes hurriedly. Neji looked at the blonde boy and Hinata's pink-haired friend who he had seen the previous day. Hinata-sama, what are we doing, and what are they doing here? Shush. Sakura was quick to warn him, you have to be quiet. He looked at her, not understanding at all. Neji-san, we don't want you to get the caged bird seal. Hinata clarified. Yeah. Naruto agreed in a low voice, they were gonna put that seal thingy on you so we came to rescue you. Neji was dumbfounded. You mean it will happen today, Hinata-sama? I think so, she said softly. But don't worry Neji. Naruto wore a reassuring grin. We're gonna get you out of here before they can find you. A look of betrayal and horror was present on the boy's face. He had no idea that he was so close to receiving the caged bird seal. No one said anything to me. It made sense to him then why his father had been so upset recently, and he felt a combination of anger and fear rise inside of him. He had seen his father at the mercy of the caged bird seal before, and had come to dread the time when he would be branded with it. Come on, let's go. Naruto commanded before turning away to retrace their steps. Sakura followed close behind him, but Neji was hesitant to go anywhere. Please, Neji-san, Hinata gave him a worried look, we can't stay here. She had a point, the sharp ends of the tangled branches were painful. He said nothing, but followed Hinata and her friends, wondering where his father was. The gardens had emptied out after the water had ended its supernatural dance. Haku had easily caught up to his companions who made a beeline for the front gate. Haku-kun, Sakura was glad he had rejoined them. Did you find Gaara-kun yet? The black-haired boy shook his head. No Sakura-chan, I haven't, but I think he's alright. Haku then noticed that they had successfully retrieved Hinata's cousin. Oh, hello Neji-san. I hope you're alright. Neji couldn't believe how popular he had become in such a short amount of time. Okay, it's just a bit farther now. Naruto was grinning at him. I can't believe how well this worked. Honestly, it was a miracle his plan had worked at all. Sakura was still edgy as they neared the perimeter wall. Naruto-kun, we can't just leave without Gaara-kun. What if he needs our help? Naruto halted and they ducked down as a few Hyuga clan members entered the compound. You're right Sakura-chan. Where did Gaara go anyway? The blonde pondered. They hadn't seen hide or hair of him anywhere. Neji quickly took stock that everyone he had seen yesterday was now present with the exception of one person. He recalled the boy with the red hair, and assumed he was the one Sakura was worried over. Silently, Hinata had activated her Byakugan for the second time, and scanned the area. She noticed a small, lone figure well hidden in a tree top. Naruto-kun, I see him. Hinata pointed to Gaara's perch, he's up there waiting. Haku clapped his hand over Naruto's mouth as Jiraiya had, silencing him before he could call out to their lofty friend. Remember Naruto, we still have to be quiet, Haku said in a soft voice, we haven't escaped just yet. The QB container nodded and Haku let go after seeing he would restrain himself. How are we going to get his attention without being seen? Sakura asked. Haku frowned. Sakura had another point. Without warning, Naruto hurled his shuriken up at the tree, causing Hinata to eep in surprise. With a thunk, the shuriken was embedded in the side of the tree, and after a moment, Gaara extracted it and hopped down from the branch. Naruto was grinning at himself. It was the first time he had ever thrown a real shuriken and he actually hit his target. Sakura knocked him on top of his head. Naruto, are you nuts? What if you hit Gaara-kun? He didn't. Gaara had quickly rejoined them. Here. He handed the weapon back to Naruto who was nursing the new lump on his head. Or, come on Sakura-chan, he's fine. Naruto whined, and why did you have to hit me? Because what you did was reckless and I don't ever want you to do that again. She scolded. Neji watched with slight amusement. Although Hinata did feel bad that Naruto had been disciplined so roughly, she agreed with Sakura's reasoning. Naruto had once again nearly given her a heart attack. We should go now, Hinata said softly while she observed the front gate. No one's coming. Naruto nodded to her. All right, let's go. To attract less attention they ran out in pairs of two, as suggested by Haku. If there were less of them to be seen at once it was more likely they would go unnoticed. Gaara headed up the front for defense, alongside Naruto who was still exhaustingly fast. Hinata kept her eyes open warily as she and Sakura followed. Once on the other side they ducked down by the wall, preparing to jump it again. Just as Haku and Neji were about to make the mad dash to the gate, a voice sounded. Neji, where have you been? Haku felt his heart drop into his stomach and he froze where he stood. An error on his part, he should have had Neji leave first. It made the most sense since it was their mission to rescue him after all. The plan quickly went down the proverbial tubes. Father, Neji said softly, standing protectively in front of his frightened companion. From a distance, Hinata gasped and immediately ordered that they turn back. Even though it was a hopeless objective at the time, she ran back to her cousin, still determined to prevent the inevitable. Hisashi and Hiashi stood in front of Neji, both wearing inquiring looks. Neji, Hisashi looked down at his son. Who is this with you? He didn't sound angry, only confused. But still, Haku was terrified and had no idea how he would be able to think his way out of his current situation. Neji recalled Sakura saying his name, and hesitantly answered, Haku. Hiashi looked down at Haku with piercing lunar eyes. How did you manage to enter Hyuga grounds, Haku? He asked. Before Haku could summon his courage to answer, the head of the Hyuga clan, 4 more children appeared out of nowhere to stand beside him and Neji. Hiashi was bewildered to say the least. How did all of you children get in here? Hisashi asked, seeing that the Uzumaki boy was among the group. We wanted to help Neji. Naruto couldn't keep his mouth shut. Hiashi only gave him a guarded look, wondering how the Kyuubi boy had come to know Neji. Father, Hinata spoke up, these are my friends. The reason they are here is that we didn't want to let Neji-Nisan receive the caged bird seal, and so we tried to. She didn't have to keep explaining for her father to know what was going on. Hinata, you know better than to let anyone interfere with Hyuga tradition. The girl looked down guiltily. Even if it's tradition or whatever, you can't just put that seal on him when he didn't do anything wrong. Naruto protested, Neji, he's nice I can tell. I won't let you put that seal on him. Hiashi felt his temper flare as the Uzumaki child showed such unwitting disrespect. Gaara and Sakura watched quietly as Hisashi looked down at Naruto with an appreciative look. Excuse me sir, Haku hoped being polite would soften Hiashi's mood, but Neji-san and Hinata-chan are cousins, they're family members. So why would people who care about each other have such harsh traditions? Apparently, Haku had a brief understanding of how a normal family would function. Yet his knowledge did not reach to the complexity of clans and the balance of power that was involved in living in one. Hinata couldn't believe their boldness, especially Naruto's. Even she was terrified of speaking to her father like that. You children have no concept of what you're doing. Hiashi gave each of them a bothered look. Neji's fate has been decided. Hiashi-sama. Hiashi turned to his brother and noted the pained expression on his face. Neji stood by him, trembling terribly. He winced inwardly, but swallowed the momentary guilt he felt on his nephew's behalf. Hiashi, these children speak with a wisdom that is beyond the capacity of our clan, Hisashi said slowly, his eyes resting on Neji. The only thing I would ask of you, my brother, before my parting, is the freedom of my son. Recent events made Hiashi understand his twin brother's meaning, but he still couldn't defer from generations of rights for the sake of one boy. It was something the clan elders demanded. Hiashi himself would prefer to halt the proceedings if it were possible. Father, please, Hinata pleaded. Hiashi finally turned his gaze to his daughter and was astounded. She looked to him with the tearful eyes of the Byakugan, hoping that in some way she could make him listen. Hinata, Hiashi's voice was low, when did you accomplish this? When we were looking for Neji-Nisan, she squeaked, I did it somehow. Even Hisashi was amazed. He hadn't expected his brother's timid daughter to discover her blood limit so quickly. Naruto also looked over to Hinata and got a closer look at her eyes. The way they seemed to intake light and the sheer depth unnerved him. Hey Sakura-chan, he whispered to the pink-haired girl beside him, I didn't know Hinata-chan could do that with her eyes. I don't think that anyone knew she could, Naruto-kun. She replied quietly. Hiashi examined his daughter's eyes for a long moment before saying, I understand that you care for your cousin, Hinata. But you must realize that if I exempt him from receiving the branch family seal, he will be eligible to become the next head of the Hyuga clan. You will both be heirs, and thus, be forced to compete. Hinata wiped her eyes on the sleeve of her lavender kimono. I know, father. He frowned at her. Do you understand, Hinata? You may be the heiress to our clan, but that won't mean anything if your cousin is free to surpass you. I understand. Her voice was meek, but it doesn't seem right to hold him back in such a horrible way. It is tradition. It isn't fair. Naruto spoke up again. If you're so scared of everyone being stronger than you, then maybe you should put that seal on everybody. There was only silence. Neji stood shaking by Hisashi, who braced his shoulder comfortingly. No one had ever seen Hinata stand up to her father before. It even left Haku, Gaara, as well as Sakura stunned. And Naruto didn't seem intent on backing down either, even if he displayed his opinion through his volume. Father, Hinata said steadily, it's what I wish. Naruto stood next to her and nodded vigorously. Hisashi turned expectantly to his brother, having no idea what Hiashi would say next. I see. Hiashi then sighed, I will speak to the elders if that is your true decision, but you are young yet, and may come to regret your actions later, Hinata. Bear this in mind. She shook her head, I promise, I won't regret it. Her father wore a contemplative expression. Very well. I expect you to begin more rigorous training then, Hinata, since you have finally activated your blood limit. Yes, father. She bowed her head respectfully in thanks, and watched with quivering lips as he returned to the main house without another word. She felt like crying, she was so happy. And yet, she was also frightened at what she had agreed to. Her father had made it very clear to her that her decision may radically affect her future, but she felt it was a necessary consequence. Naruto's face once again exploded into a grin. Woohoo. We did it, Hinata-chan. Neji won't be getting the caged bird seal. He began giving high fives to all of his friends, nearly tearing Gaara's arm off, and even gave one to a rather startled Hisashi. He watched the small children hop around cheering. A tear welled at the corner of his eye, still unable to believe such a thing was possible. Could the kindness of children change the future of the Hyuga? Hinata-sama. Neji was still trembling, completely overwhelmed of how she had stood up for him so selflessly. A smile cracked on Hisashi's face as he watched his son hug the Hyuga heiress in deep gratitude. Never in his life had he expected such a blessing, and he, just like Hinata, decided he would live with no regrets. There you are, you little brats. Jiraiya had suddenly appeared on the Hyuga grounds, and was absolutely fuming. After what he had overheard earlier, he figured that they may have snuck off to the Hyuga compound. He had a black eye and a few unexplainable bite marks on his face and hands, suggesting he had been in a great struggle. Naruto was actually pleased to see him. Hey Ero Sennin. Stop calling me that, you little twerp. The Sennin hoisted Naruto up by the collar of his black shirt and prepared to strangle him. Hisashi gave him an incredulous look. Gama Sennin, he asked, to what honor do we owe this visit? The legendary Toad Sage was always a welcome guest around the Hyuga compound, even if his reasons for stopping by were unclear. He practically stormed right through the front gate, cussing and rambling about some loathsome children. Jiraiya turned to Hisashi and then chuckled sheepishly, just looking for the kids. They keep running off. Yeah right Ero Sennin. You keep ditching us. Naruto laughed, not at all bothered that the man was ready to crush his windpipe so he wouldn't speak. I told you to stop calling me that, you punk. Jiraiya roughly dropped Naruto back to the ground and he landed on his butt. Jiraiya-sama, are you alright? Haku was bothered by his bruised and beefy face. What happened to you? You two and that red-headed imp cause me far too much grief. The Sennin growled, glaring daggers at Gaara. Gaara smirked back at him. He, like Naruto, had less respect for the perverted old man. Father, who is this man? Neji asked curiously. This is the great Toad Sage, Jiraiya. He was the sensei of the fourth Hokage. Hisashi answered. At the mention of his nobler, Jiraiya once again inflated, but then recognized the man next to him. Oh, Hisashi-san. I hope you're well. Very well indeed, Gama Sennin. Hisashi nodded, smiling. Any day his only son was spared of the caged bird seal was a very good day. A dark look came over Jiraiya's face for a moment and he asked in a low voice, so, when are you scheduled to go to Cloud? Hisashi's expression saddened a bit. You've heard. Yeah, sorry about that. Jiraiya apologized on bringing up such a personal subject. I was talking with Hokage-sama yesterday. It's alright, Hisashi assured him, I have less than 2 weeks. Jiraiya nodded. He held a great respect for the branch family member after what he had been told. Hopefully his son hadn't been informed about his father's not too distant fate. Clearly Neji had no idea. He and the other children only watched the exchange between the two men, puzzled. Right. Jiraiya cleared his tea loudly. Well, these three here can be a real pain. He gestured to Naruto, Haku, and Gaara, but the good kids for the most part. Hisashi nodded. I know. Neji had stepped up to them. Thank you, all of you. I don't think you can ever know how much you've helped me. Naruto grinned at him, glad they had succeeded. It was no problem. You can count on us. Hinata smiled as well and then remembered they hadn't been introduced. Oh, Neji-Nisan, you haven't really met them all, have you? He had caught some of the names. This is Naruto-kun, Haku-kun, and Gaara-kun. Hinata then turned to her last companion, and Sakura-chan. Neji bowed his head. It is good to meet you all. Likewise, Neji-san. Haku was equally friendly. Gaara was quiet but appeared to be glad as well. Naruto was surprised when he felt a pair of arms embrace him in a warm hug. Hinata's face was beet red but she was very grateful for everything he had done. Naruto-kun, thank you for helping us. He hugged her back. Wow. It is good to have friends. Anytime, Hinata-chan. He then looked over to his other companions. Now I am starving. I can really go for some ramen. Haku turned a pale shade of green. Time to get going you three, Jiraiya interrupted, we need to talk. Naruto frowned, no way Ero Sennin. I want to stay with Hinata-chan today, like I promised. Don't you have any research to do? I'll be the next time I try thanks to you. Jiraiya scowled, I swear, Konoha isn't a good place for research, so let's get going. They ignored him. Neji found Jiraiya's annoyed face quite amusing, as did his father. Haku, Gaara, grab the blonde squirt and let's go. Jiraiya tried his luck with the other two. We're going to stay here, Jiraiya-sama. Maybe later. Haku's politeness was beginning to irk him. Time for a different approach. Fine, stay if you like. Jiraiya smirked, if you want to miss out on a new ninja skill. All three of them lined up in front of him. When do we start? Gaara asked. The offer had even attracted Hinata, Neji and Sakura's attention. As soon as we leave. The Sennin sighed. They were easy to please. Jiraiya-sama. Sakura spoke up, can Hinata-chan and I come too? Why not? He then smirked to Naruto, popular with the girls already squirt. I must be rubbing off on you. The QB container gagged, Brr. No way Ero Sennin. I'm not like you. Father, can I go with them? Neji asked. Hisashi had no problem with it, yes. Make sure you bring back Hinata-sama in the evening for her training. His son nodded, I will. They had ended up outside of the Hokage's tower. The third had requested that Jiraiya bring Haku along with his friends in hopes that Haku may demonstrate his Kekkei Genkai abilities. The Sennin felt it wouldn't be difficult. All he had to do was tempt the children with the promise of a ninja skill that they most likely wouldn't be able to perform, and they flocked to him like moths to a candle. However, Jiraiya had been slightly annoyed that Naruto had made so many friends. The crowd of children following him made him feel something like a mother duck. He disliked that sensation. Yet the newcomers had proved to be polite, obedient, and didn't give him a hard time. Unlike a certain Three Stooges he had come to know. Hey, Ero Sennin, what are you gonna teach us to do? Naruto was growing impatient. Ugh. The sage decided to pick another basic skill. We'll start with Henj no Jutsu, the transformation technique. Sakura's face brightened. Wow. You'll teach us a real jutsu, Gamma Sennin. The Sennin smirked. Oh, I'll teach you all right, but that doesn't mean any of you squirts will be able to do it. I mean, you guys are what? 3, 4, 6. Naruto barked, and we can do it, old man. You just show us how. Hinata felt her heart flutter. Naruto's confidence helped boost her own, and maybe if she was able to perform the jutsu she may demonstrate it to her father later. Alright, sheesh. Jiraiya cleared his tea and then proceeded with a lesson. As most of you are aware, all jutsu require chakra. The amount of chakra needed depends on the jutsu that is being used. He looked down at the row of children in front of him. Any of you squirts by some chance have any chakra control yet? Haku, Gaara and Neji raised their hands, and even though Naruto couldn't prove it, he too raised his hand. Hinata wore a disheartened look, but Sakura quickly dusted the subject over for her. How much chakra does this jutsu need anyway, sensei? Jiraiya smirked. Good question, Missy. The transformation jutsu don't require much chakra at all, but focusing your chakra is the key. It's easiest to begin by transforming into another person. Haku smiled to himself. He knew he could focus. Alright, so, any of you know any hand seals? The Sennin asked, not expecting them to. At first no one answered, and Jiraiya felt he would have his work see out for him. He then noticed the shy girl of the group slowly raise her hand. There is the D-dog, horse, bee-boar and hare. Hinata said softly, surprising her companions with her knowledge. Jiraiya raised his eyebrows at her. Yep, that's right, princess. Anyone else? Neji continued the list easily. There is also the rat, ox, tiger, dragon, serpent, ram, monkey, and bird. The Sennin's eyebrows went up even further. Wow. You Hyuga kids sure know your stuff. Anyway, of those 12 signs the only one you will need to know for this jutsu is the ram seal. Jiraiya demonstrated the seal for them. Make sure you get this right, or it will fail. It's important to have full concentration while EA jutsu. They quickly memorized the hand sign, although it took Naruto a few moments, with Hinata's help, to position his fingers correctly. So Jiraiya-sama, we focus our chakra and concentrate on what we want to transform into. Haku confirmed, always one step ahead. I swear, kid, the way you work things out deserves an award. The Sennin commended him. As usual, you're right, Haku. Give it a try when you're ready. Who exactly should we turn into, sensei? Sakura asked, wondering if he had anyone specific in mind. Whoever you squirts can think of. He didn't really care. Gaara frowned. He didn't want Haku to surpass him yet again, although it was something he was getting used to. He formed the ram seal and focused his chakra. There was a puff of smoke, and where Gaara once stood was the spitting image of Jiraiya. Naruto felt his jaw drop. It was still glaringly obvious that it was Gaara, because of the uncharacteristic scowl the false Jiraiya wore. The Sennin sighed. Next time, kid, try to look a bit happier. His companions looked on in surprise, not expecting Gaara to have such luck on his first try. Gaara released the jutsu and smirked at Jiraiya. I'll try. One of these days I'll give that sand kid a piece of my mind. Hey Gaara, that was great. Naruto praised him. Haku immediately tried it next. having no problem focusing his chakra and flawlessly imitated the image of Jiraiya as Gaara had. The Sennin was grateful for the less angry expression on Haku's henge. Well done, Haku. Jiraiya nodded to the farm boy after he had released his jutsu, wearing a very pleased smile. How do you keep doing that, Haku? Naruto spoke up again, it's like you know everything. The dark-haired boy shook his head, I really don't. Hinata looked at both Gaara and Haku in amazement. Had they ever used a jutsu before? They made it look so easy. Neji wore a small frown while he too made the hand seal. Once the smoke from his henge had cleared, a false Haku stood there, startling the real farm boy. Neji then smiled in a similar way that Haku had, scaring his companions with his accuracy. Sakura was hopping up and down, excited that there had been 3 successful henge in a row. Naruto, however, was uncommonly hesitant, not sure who to imitate. That was kind of creepy. The Sennin admitted to Neji, again, great job, but maybe you should lay off the smiling, kid. Of course, Neji took it as an open invitation to smile more to startle his foes. Naruto laughed at Haku's astonished face. Hey, Haku, that was pretty cool, huh? Poof, he looked just like you. A small smile spread over Gaara's face. He too found Haku's astounded expression funny. Okay, my turn, Sakura announced, and she quickly made the hand seal. Hers was one of the most shocking, and oddly successful, transformations yet. She had taken the appearance of Gaara. The Kazekige's youngest son felt his smile turn into a look of shock. He understood how Haku had felt upon looking at a copy of himself. Whoa, Sakura-chan. The blonde boy was pleasantly surprised yet again. The pink-haired girl grinned in accomplishment after undoing the jutsu. How was that, Gama Sennin? Not half bad, Missy. Jiraiya answered, appreciating that someone had eliminated Gaara's smug expression. Neji turned to his cousin, do you think you can do it, Hinata-sama? A nervous blush crept over her cheeks. I'll try. I know you can do it, Hinata-chan. Naruto grinned at her. Haku nodded with a friendly smile, yes, Hinata-chan. It's simple. She felt her hand slip into the ram seal, and concentrated her chakra. Her henge choice had been clear in her mind for quite a while. Hinata trembled slightly before she was enveloped in smoke, still slightly anxious. Thankfully she had succeeded. A nervous-looking Naruto stood in front of her companions. Sakura cheered with Haku and a low chuckle resonated from her cousin. Naruto stood bewildered for a split second and then peeled into a fit of laughter. He couldn't have been more flattered. After undoing the henge, Hinata's face was completely crimson. Jiraiya nodded his head with a small smile. Good girl. Make sure you show that to your dad. IW will. Why did you pick Naruto? Gaara asked her curiously. Hinata gulped before answering, well, he hadn't been chosen so I thought. Naruto gave her a thumb up. Hey. Hinata-chan. That was so awesome. You even had me fooled for a second. Jiraiya sighed, you're the only person who'd admit that, squirt. The blonde boy glared indignantly at Jiraiya. Naruto, aren't you going to try? Haku asked. The QB container nodded excitedly, yup. I just thought of what I'll do. Dramatically, Naruto went to the front of the line and cleared his tea loudly. He carefully made his hand seal, and focused as best he could on the flow of his chakra. Poof. There hadn't been much of a transformation. Instead, Naruto stood there wearing a huge grin. In full Hokage attire, there was delighted chatter and laughter from his friends, but Jiraiya's eyes nearly bugged out of his head. No way in hell. Jiraiya snapped, I'll be S before I see you become Hokage. That's true, Naruto laughed while tipping his hat to the Sennin, you are really old. That was the last straw for the Toad Sage. The Sandaime had been watching Jiraiya's escapade from his office. He hadn't expected all of the children to pick up on the jutsu so quickly, but had been pleased to see Naruto's creativity. He looks so much like his father. Hiruzen muttered to himself. The Hokage watched in entertainment while Jiraiya began to draw Haku into his plan. I have to say, Jiraiya said after knocking Naruto over the head a few times, you all did surprisingly well. Hinata and Sakura smiled excitedly at each other, and Naruto began to rant about how the Sennin was a big jerk. But really, out of all of you, Haku truly is the most impressive. Jiraiya continued, his chakra control is far superior and for a 5-year-old he's uniquely intelligent. 6. Naruto shouted, And what are you talking about, Ero Senin? I thought we were all awesome. I agree, but his talent far exceeds any of you. The Senin paused, except maybe young Neji here. I don't buy that. The blonde snapped back. Haku may be good at some things, but I think that we're all equal for the most part. He just didn't get it. Even so, Haku stoutly agreed with his friend, Jiraiya-sama, Naruto is right. I'm no better than anyone here. It seemed they were all in agreement on the matter. Kids are such a pain. Can you prove that, squirt? Jiraiya smirked at Naruto. Are you just as strong as your buddy here? I sure am. Naruto barked and then turned to Haku. Hey Haku, why don't we have a rematch? You know, from that day in the woods. How could he forget? All right, he nodded, and glanced over at a nearby fountain. I think I've gotten faster, Naruto. We'll see. Seeing that some sort of contest of strength was about to take place, thanks to a bit of prodding on his part, Jiraiya relocated himself and the rest of the group to a nearby bench to watch. Haku will win, Gaara said simply. Neji nodded and even Sakura agreed, but Hinata protested. Are you sure? Maybe Naruto-kun is right, maybe the same. Her friends took the thought into consideration, although it didn't seem likely. On a silent command, they began. Naruto charged, ready to barrel into the frail Haku although he was not aiming to hurt him in any way. Haku held his ground. I'll wait for him to get closer. Higher. Naruto leapt at the farm boy who sidestepped the move gracefully. The clumsy blonde tumbled to the ground but quickly regained his footing. By that time Haku was running in the opposite direction. Naruto laughed in response. What? Are you scared or something, Haku? The QB container unwittingly followed, not even realizing Haku was once again leading him into a trap. Curious, Neji turned to Jiraiya. Why is he running away, Gama Senin? Oh, you'll see. Jiraiya anticipated the farm boy's next move. Naruto was making a round of strange battle cries while he raced to catch up to Haku. With a knowing smile, Haku jumped up to the large circular fountain and stepped out onto the water. He kept running along the surface, preparing for his attack. The onlookers, with the exception of Gaara, gasped in surprise as Haku walked on top of the fountain water. How can he do that? Sakura blurted out, not believing what her eyes were seeing. Like I said, the Senin side, that kid has superior chakra control. It's a skill that takes most graduated genin a while to develop. Haku is not a genin yet. You can't get away this time. Naruto laughed as he hopped up on the rim of the fountain. He realized too late that his opponent had been waiting for him. Haku raised his arms, and thrust them purposefully towards Naruto. Two jets of cold water fired themselves at the blonde boy's face, his usual target. Ayah! Naruto, blinded, stumbled and fell face first into the shallow water. It wasn't wise to fight Haku in his own element. This kid is gold. Jiraiya chuckled to himself, noting that the Hokage was seeing what he was seeing. Free manipulation of water was a skill unheard of to nearly all ninja, unless one was a descendant from a water country clan. Haku's assault on Naruto had confirmed what both Jiraiya and the Hokage had assumed about him. Sakura immediately asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Gama Senin, how can Haku-kun move water like that? He was glad to answer, it is a unique ability of his Missy, a Kekkei Genkai. Our young Hyugas here also have a unique blood limit. The Byakugan, Neji stated, while Hinata nodded. So, it's a power only he has? The pink-haired girl asked. Fortunately and unfortunately, yes. The sage told them, the bright side of that fact is that only Haku will develop this unique skill of his in Konoha, granting the Hokage invaluable information. The sad part is, this means that he has no family and no clan to protect him. A sympathetic look appeared on both Hinata and Neji's faces. They could imagine what it would be like to have no clan members to depend on. Suddenly, a hand shot up from beneath the water and seized Haku's ankle. Before he could give a startled shout, Haku was dragged under the water as well. Surprised, Jiraiya hopped to his feet. Whoa, I might have to step in. I didn't think this would get ugly. Within seconds, a large blast of water catapulted Naruto out of the fountain and painfully back down to the pavement. The group watched as he sailed through the air like a screaming rocket, and then landed full on his rump. The Senin sat back down. Never mind. Haku stood up and inhaled a breath of fresh air. He shook his shoulder-length ebony hair out, scattering droplets of water everywhere. He quickly ran to Naruto, who was on the ground, soaking wet and rubbing his sore butt. Are you alright, Naruto? I'm sorry if I. The QB container forced a grin. Nah. I'm fine, Haku. I didn't think you'd blow me out of the water like that. Gaara smirked as he stood by Naruto. I almost thought you had him, Naruto. Almost. The blonde chuckled. Neji and Sakura didn't waste a moment going over to Haku and asking him how he had managed such a victory. Hinata, on the other hand, had promptly gone to Naruto as Gaara had. Naruto-kun, that was amazing. Why you and Haku-kun were very closely matched, she said softly to the boy. He appreciated her consoling words even though he wasn't a sore loser. Thanks, Hinata-chan. He gave her a genuine smile of growth. She blushed furiously in response. Gaara rolled his eyes. Well, Squirt, I can't say you didn't have that coming to you. The Sennin was pleased that Naruto had suffered a defeat at the hands of his gentle friend. Yeah, Ero Sennin, but I still think that if there wasn't any water we'd be the same. Naruto still hadn't been convinced otherwise. Gaara suddenly had an unusual look about him and he appeared peculiarly anxious. He turned to Haku, who was explaining the functions of water walking. Haku, why don't you fight me? The farm boy's head snapped around and he looked at Gaara in surprise. Haku was still dripping wet from the last fracas and now Gaara was ready to have a piece of him. Haku felt hesitant. Gaara had proved in the Hyuga compound how crafty his sand could be. He didn't feel he'd be much of a match for him. I don't know, Gaara. Jiraiya noted that the Hokage was still observing, and believed that another match to test Haku's abilities would be something worth seeing. Go ahead, Haku, Jiraiya encouraged airily, you won't hurt him too much. Haku didn't find that much incentive. He hadn't even hurt Naruto that badly and it still had bothered him immensely. The thought of physically harming Gaara was vexing. Gaara, however, just looked antsy to test himself rather than to beat fragile Haku to a pulp. Haku nodded after a moment, okay. In seconds, sand began to leak out of Gaara's gourd, and both Haku and the observing Hokage wondered what he had just gotten himself into. Haku smiled to himself. It was only a bit of sparring between friends. What could happen? That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.